Hi everyone, it's William, excuse me, with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series, and I left you hanging in the last video about where we would be heading next, and we are in 1914. We're doing a letter that Dmitri wrote to Nicholas in March, 19th March 1914, and it has been published. It's in a book that has not been translated into English, but is available in French and Russian. And these are letters that were confiscated by the Bolsheviks after the revolution. And it's a collection, the book, it's a collection of letters written by several of the Grand Dukes, not just Dmitri, to Nicholas. And at the moment, I can't remember the title either in French or in Russian, which is stupid of me. I'll find that for you. But let's go ahead and proceed now. It was published, I believe, in Russian in 1926. And I read it at the library of the School of Slavonic and East European Studies at the University of London. So I don't know how easy or difficult it is to buy in either French or Russian, but it's certainly, both versions are certainly in circulation in university libraries and may be available through interlibrary loan. Okay, so our recap. In the last video, we finished the letter that Dmitri wrote to his sister on the 6th of April, 1911. And in that last half of the letter, he talked about finishing up at the Nicholas Cavalry School, and he would soon be entering the Horse Guards Regiment, and he was contemplating a move to Krasное Selo, which apparently was where the Horse Guards were headquartered, maybe permanently or maybe just at that particular time, I'm not sure. So he was excited about that, and that's what he was talking about. Okay, in 1914, in March 1914, he was 23 years old. He wouldn't turn, or was he 22? He was 22 years old. He wouldn't turn 23 until September. And, but reading between the lines of this letter, or the general sense I get from this letter, and which I think you will too, is that he was much more independent than he was in the 1910 or 1911 letters. He's not yet completely of age. He does have control of everything but his finances, which are still supervised and would be until he was 25. And this letter was written in Palermo and sent to Nicholas. And I think you'll see that one of the most valuable things about this letter is what it reveals about the relationship between Nicholas and Dmitri. But anyway, it's a long letter, so we will be doing it in parts. And here we go with part 1. 19th March 1914, my dear uncle. It's surprising, I know, that I suddenly decided to write you. After all, you know how little I like this kind of activity. But living so frightfully far away from friends and loved ones, a person sometimes wants to chat and share his thoughts. Since I now find myself in a situation where it's completely impossible to take the 7:20 train to have dinner with you in Tsarskaya, I thought I would write, my dear, and not only some stupid Karolina postal, but a proper letter. Of course, you're the worse off for my decision, because a postcard can be read in 1 minute, but a letter, especially one written by me, requires a great deal of effort and good eyes. Well, no matter. Bring these pages into the bathroom with you when you take a shit. Then you'll have time to read it, and if needed, you'll have time to read them, and if need be, you can wipe yourself with them, combining usefulness with pleasure. I'm staying in Palermo. The doctor told me I should go to Taormina, but Papa says it's unthinkable to stay there very long. The garden is small, and there's nowhere to go for an outing. Since the main purpose of my trip is to improve my health in an environment of warmth and sunshine, I headed for Sicily, where I plan to stay another 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, it's getting darker here. I had a not so much that it was a busy day as that it's the day after the 4th of July, and there's just still lots of activity going on in the neighborhood that, creates noise, but that's all right. So, yeah, Dmitri doesn't like writing letters. He has commented on that himself, and other people have mentioned it in relation to him. But it's almost universal, isn't it? I'm not sure I really know anybody who likes to write letters. I'm sure, thank God, there are people who like to write letters, and historically there were people who liked to write letters and did write letters, and that has enriched us very much. But Dmitri didn't like to, and yet he left several interesting ones. So, in relation to Nicholas, in this instance, he's looking to Nicholas as someone to turn to when he's feeling a little lonely, away from everybody else. He's alone in Palermo. He doesn't mention Georgy Mikhailovich, so maybe he was just there with, a servant or two. Anyway, yeah, Nicholas is a surrogate father. We know that. And so it's natural that he would, if he's going to write a letter at all, that he would write to Nicholas. And he's feeling a little wistful about the fact that when he's living in Petersburg, he very often did take the train to Tsarskaya Selo on the weekends. He would spend a weekend there. And yeah, if he takes the 7:20 train, he's probably arriving just about in time for dinner at 8 o'clock. Okay, interesting that he calls Nicholas my dear. Not surprising, people did talk that way at that time. It might be a little odd now if I was to write a letter to one of my uncles. Well, they're both deceased, so I wouldn't. But if I had at any time written a letter to one of them and called them my dear, or to a male cousin, because after all, Nicholas was Dmitri's cousin, not his uncle, they would have found it odd. But in early 20th century Russia, yeah, not at all. Standard. If you're fond of someone, that is, not with a stranger, but if you have a warm relationship with someone. So, yeah, nothing to be surprised about there. Funny that he talks about his penmanship. Yes, I will go along with that. He says you need good eyes to read my writing, and I have seen worse, believe me, much worse. But his is no walk in the park. So he knew what he was talking about. And effort. It takes effort to read one of my letters. I wonder why that was. Maybe because he tended to, include sarcastic humor, or maybe because he didn't think he was very good at composition, although really he is. I don't know, but it takes effort and good eyes to read my letters, he says. Then we have an example of something that seems to have been quite consistent with him and Nicholas, and with Dmitri in general. Scatological humor. Now, what I have translated as shit is indeed shit in Russian. It's not, some more genteel version of the word, говно, shit. And so, yeah, he liked scatological humor, not only in letters to Nicholas, but also in letters to his sister, and other people, and once in a while in his diaries, but mainly in his correspondence. And this self-deprecating humor, I mean, we've seen that repeatedly in the letters to Maria. I'm brilliant, but I'm also stupid. You know, you're right to call me a pig, various things like that. It was always that sort of strange juxtaposition in Dmitri, and we're not really seeing the, you know, the other side of it, where he will say I'm brilliant and then I'm stupid. There's no I'm brilliant in this instance. I think he talks later in the letter about having sort of had a, I don't know, a meltdown of some kind in relation to Nicholas. So he's feeling fairly sheepish and apologetic. But that will come a little later when he talks about that. Meanwhile, of course, he's suggesting that Nicholas take his multi-page letter into the bathroom and not waste any time reading it, but combining it with those, with the time that he has to spend in the bathroom, and then using it as toilet paper. I'm sure Nicholas got a good laugh at that, because Nicholas seems to have liked that aspect of Dmitri. He seems in particular to have liked that Dmitri was using this kind of humor and was boyish and lively and, not stuffy or anything like that. Probably one of the few people around Nicholas who was that kind of free and easy and, willing to indulge in that sort of humor. Most people certainly would not have gone there with the emperor, right? Okay, Taormina was a resort, is a resort in Sicily. The photos of it, just in like the Wikipedia article, are gorgeous. I haven't been there. I've been to Syracuse, and I've been to Lipari, one of the islands just to the north of Sicily, I think, and I've been to Messina. I've never been to Palermo. Syracuse is absolutely gorgeous. It kind of looks like Taormina to me in the photos I saw of Taormina. Anyway, Taormina was a well-known resort, and apparently Paul had a villa there. That's reading between the lines. Dmitri saying that the garden is small and there's nowhere to go for an outing. Well, from what I can see in Wikipedia, there were lots of places to go for outings, but apparently Paul had a villa. It was small, and for whatever reason, he didn't think Dmitri should stay in Taormina. So Dmitri moved on to Palermo, which I assume is a much bigger city. I mean, it's the biggest city, right, in Sicily, and a fairly good-sized one, I think. But anyway, kind of ironic, because the woman who seems to have been Dmitri's last girlfriend when he was at Schatzalp was from Palermo, Rosalia Termini. She was a Sicilian woman. And I think he's staying at a hotel in Palermo. I'm pretty sure we'll see that in the next section of this letter. But the big question is his health. So what's going on with that? I don't know. He's going to be talking more about that coming up. Right now, he's saying the purpose of my trip is to improve my health in the warmth and sunshine. So I headed for Sicily. Since the main purpose of my trip is to improve my health, blah, 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 I headed for Sicily. So he made this decision on his own. And he's going to stay there another 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe he'll tell us how long he's been there already. And what was going on with his health? Well, there's always a question with Dmitri, whether there really is something going on with his health, or whether it's psychosomatic, or whether it's depression. Whether it's actual clinical depression. And what he talks about later, about this meltdown that he had while he was in Petersburg, and that he apologizes for, makes it seem like, yeah, maybe there was a psychological element. Maybe he was depressed. And I don't know. He made this sort of mini grand tour in 1914, and he would be going and doing a lot of sort of partying, judging from his later diary entries when he talks about, oh, I met Coco Chanel for the first time in 1914. I met such and such glamorous woman, or such and such interesting man while I was in Rome and while I was in Paris. But anyway, at the moment he's withdrawn from that and he's staying in Palermo. Later on, I will do a spoiler here and say that later on he will talk about weakness, that what he's suffering from is weakness. And that was something that Dmitri did tend to cite when he was having some kind of depressive or psychosomatic interlude. For instance, in 1915, when he was out in the country at Usovo, and then again in January 1917, when he was in Persia, and having these sort of crises. I don't know. Anyway, we will, as we go through the letter, he'll discuss that more, and we can form conclusions based on that. Well, form hypotheticals anyway. Okay, so what do we have next time? Next time, talking briefly about being in Paris before he departed for Palermo, and then talking about his life in Palermo. There are some surprising things in this letter. So I hope you'll come back for that. Apologies for the darkness here. I'm doing this actually in the glow of my laptop computer. Anyway, I hope to see you next time. Bye.